Good morning. I'm Jasmine Madison, née Harrison, and I was asked to share a testimony on something that I struggle with as a woman. And it's a very hard decision to make about what do I talk about, because women struggle with so much, especially women who have been through divorce and women who have had to accept that their decisions have not always been, in line with what God desires. The one thing I will start off by saying is that nobody really gets up. Where I don't believe that women get up and say, I'm going to marry this man. I know he's going to hurt me, but I don't care. I'm going to marry this man, and I know that I'm going to be lonely in a few years. I'm going to marry this man, and I know he's going to abuse me, but I'm going to marry this man, whatever. Nobody decides that they're going to go into a bad situation and plan for it to be that way. We all hope that it's going to work out. We all hope that things will change. We all hope that, the bad things that we see are probably not really there. And we all wish for a happy ending. I believe that. I don't believe that any woman deliberately decides to marry into a bad situation. But coming out of a situation like that has its issues and consequences. And one of those is self-love, loving yourself after you have been through a bad relationship. Self-love becomes a challenge because people are looking at you, some judging you, some blaming you, and sometimes you end up turning that inwards and you start blaming yourself. You start looking at yourself as being inferior to other women who could keep their husbands or whose husbands could be kept. You start looking at yourself as a failure with relationships. You start questioning your value as a person. You start wondering if you will ever find love again. These are some struggles that, women coming out of these situations face. So my journey to self-love began with being honest with myself, being honest about why I made those decisions. Because with decisions about bad relationships, if with each and every one, there was a warning. There were warning signs. There were warning people who came and said, I don't think this is a good idea. I've seen this. I've known this. I remember my sister Anne deciding that although she was going to make the wedding dress or alter the wedding dress, that she was adamant she wasn't coming to the wedding. So there were people who were warned and people who cautioned and people who questioned. And I remember my brother Carl saying to me that I'm getting the feeling that you might be making a second mistake. And so you struggle with yourself after that. So you come to a place where you're honest about the fact that you saw the sign. So what is it that made me decide against what people thought, against what my gut was telling me, against what I knew for myself? What made me make that decision? And it comes down to a lack of value placed on yourself. Like you think, I'm not good enough. Maybe because I've been divorced, I might not be as good a woman as another one. And so we make self-destructive decisions out of desperation or thinking that, we don't deserve any better. But when John 3:16 really pierced my heart, and I realized that despite what I have done, despite that who I am, despite the mistakes I've made, that God loves me, all of me, good and bad, and that there is nothing that I could ever do to stop him from loving me, then I said, well, I can love myself. I'm okay. I'm not defined by my mistakes. I'm not defined by my past. And I don't think that people who really love me look at me and remember me by my mistakes. I see where my family values me for my true self, for who I am. And that helped to build my self-love. It also strengthened my relationship with God, because there were times when it was just me and God and the ceiling fan, talking to the ceiling fan as if it was God. and pouring out my heart in honesty and sincerity and saying, well, I made this mistake. I did this wrong. I should have known better. I should have listened. And it empowered me to accept that, yes, I made mistakes, but there is hope for the future. Another thing that came out of this was that when I was feeling the pain of divorce and of self-hate and, guilt and even shame, that I channeled my energy into studying. I started another degree, and every time I would be at home at night and the feelings came over me for companionship and all that, I put my energy into studying, because a lot of women don't give themselves a break between relationships. They run from one to the other, and that's the worst thing you could do, because then you're not reflecting on what your mistakes are and how you can do things differently. So I channeled my energy into studying, so at the end of the day, I might not be a married woman, but I'm educated, I'm empowered, I'm financially stable, I am qualified. I'm one of the most qualified teachers in my school right now. And at the end of this year, I'm going to be even more qualified and also certified in areas that I can get the promotions that I am looking for. So I'm encouraging any woman who struggles after making bad relationship decisions that it comes down to an acceptance of who you are, good and bad, of being honest with yourself, and of taking decided steps to move forward and be an example and a role model, not in the sense that you're perfect, but somebody can be inspired by the way you dealt with your situation. Because I've had a student walk up to me and say, Miss Madison, how do you learn to love yourself? Because I hate myself. And I thought, she's asking me of all people. And that's a blessing.